Hello and welcome to Engaged, the program that focuses on community-engaged research, learning and service at Mississippi State University. I'm your host, Cade Smith, and today we're joined by Beth Baker, Assistant Extension Professor of Natural Resource Conservation. Beth, welcome to Engaged.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, Beth, you're an Assistant Extension Professor. You also direct the REACH program, which is an extension program. Why don't you tell me about your background and what brought you to Mississippi State University and your role here?
Okay. Yeah, I came here from Minnesota, so I did my bachelor's and my master's up there. My bachelor's is in biomedical science, so pre-med, and then I did a master's in cell and molecular biology, and the research focus there was aquatic toxicology, so a little different. And then through a roundabout way, I ended up coming to Mississippi State, got on the campus and loved it here. And I did my PhD in the College of Forest Resources in their Wildlife, Fisheries, and Aquaculture department. So a kind of a big transition from human biology to the environmental side of things. But it's been fantastic, and it's put me in I think, a pretty unique position.
Great. So you're director of the REACH program, and that stands for Research and Education to Advance Conservation and Habitat, correct?
Yes.
Super. So why don't you tell us about the history of the REACH program and its mission?
So the program was started by the professor before me in about 2012, and I was part of the program then, just not leading it. And it was developed through partnerships with particularly Delta Farm, which is farmers advocating for resource management, a nonprofit group out in the Delta. And they also have a sister agency called Delta Wildlife. And so they do and help put a lot of conservation on the ground and work with farmers to do that. So through Delta Farm and then also the Nature Conservancy, REACH was built as kind of the research and extension arm to document conservation effectiveness and really how conservation and agriculture work together to provide not only agronomic benefits but environmental benefits, and really put numbers to that and you know help our agriculture systems be more sustainable.
Okay, super. So in thinking about that mission and building a sustainable agricultural system and the wise use of resources, explain why that mission is so important to Mississippians and really a global community.
Right. Of course, in Mississippi, agriculture is one of our greatest economic industries, and so it's important to the livelihood of our citizens, and then really especially the water focus of REACH that we have in terms of securing and protecting water resources. There's really no greater challenges than securing food and water on a global scale to address food insecurity in other countries, but also to just maintain and sustain our systems as well.
Got you. And in thinking about that, thinking about the wise use of water and its essential nature, not only for having clean water systems to drink, but as a fundamental piece in the global food systems, what is probably the most important thing to remember as it relates to the importance of water in food production?
So the most important part of water as it relates to food production? Well, we initially were addressing water and agriculture systems from a water quality standpoint in terms of protecting water quality in downstream systems. But really you need to have water in the first place in an agriculture setting. A number of our acres in the state are irrigated, and so just having water is really important. So water quality became part of that conversation as well. But in terms of really connecting at home, just discussing and engaging with our citizens that we're not disconnected from water. We use it every day in a number of different ways, even if we're not producers. So for me, making those connections, not only through our research and extension with farmers, but with all citizens in the state is, one of the main things we try to do with the program.
Super, thank you, Beth. So on our last episode, we were joined by Dr. Jason Kreutz with the Mississippi Water Resources Research Institute. And so that's within the Division of Research and Economic Development. The REACH program is housed within MSU Extension. So why don't you tell us about Extension's mission and the importance that it plays in community engagement?
Yeah, that's a great point that we want to touch on. So extension is really the mission there is taking research-based information and different educational programming along with technology transfer and addressing it and meeting the needs of the citizens of our state. And so in terms of meeting needs of Mississippians, that means we need to get out there with them and we need all of the research we do, to be applied to how they need it. And so with the REACH program, we're able to do on-farm research with producers in the state. We're able to engage with citizens to help them become scientists in their own way, of understanding the resources that they have, how they're using those resources, how it changes the availability of those resources, and can put the entire mission of extension into practice just by getting out there and doing more applied and integrated research.
Super. So in community engagement, that collaborative partnership is so important, and you mentioned Delta Farm as well as the Nature Conservancy. So clearly those are two partners that are important with the REACH program. Can you go into a little detail about those partnerships or offer other partnerships that make the REACH program and its mission possible?
Yeah, and I'd hate to list them all because I know I'll forget somebody.
Right. Okay.
We've partnered with so many people over the years, so many different agencies, so many different researchers, even within the university, and so each one of them brings unique resources, unique skills in terms of the Mississippi Department of Environmental Quality, a state regulatory agency. Along with, the Natural Resources Conservation Service, the USGS, so many different federal, state, and then even partners within the university. So the research that we do and that it's kind of evolved into is really multidisciplinary, really interdisciplinary. And so it takes a lot of different expertise from a number of the different colleges, a number of different departments, and folks with skills that I don't have to help bring these projects together and bring the information out of them.
Got you. So what about the farmers and citizens across Mississippi that you're working with and the partnerships that you have there? Are there things that you've learned that stand out in terms of advancing research, learning, and service for Mississippi?
Absolutely. In the initial stages of our research aimed at water quality, we learned so much just by taking it to the field scale, scaling up and understanding the barriers to adoption, the barriers to success that farmers are meeting on the field. And so for us to understand how things actually work and don't work, aside from what we expect in our scientific trials, has really advanced, I think, our understanding of how we're going to manage these resources pretty quickly. To understand that we do have to take more of a systems approach. It's not all about water quality. It also involves water quantity and also soil health and management of the soil in terms of putting the whole system together to understand environmental components and the agronomic components.
And so I'm sure that there's a range of producers that you work with, including those large farms in the Mississippi Delta and innovators in that areas. What about in the context of sustainable food production? Are you working with partners in that area as well?
Yeah, I would say that we are definitely connecting with folks in terms of the extension work that we're doing, the educational components. I don't think our research has gotten there yet, but it's not because we don't want to. There's so much more work that I can't wait to do in the state. I can't wait to expand. We've done work in some of the northern areas, some partners here near Starkville, and I can't even tell you how many folks I've probably talked to from around the state. I love to learn about their production systems because they're also so unique. But I think that's definitely an avenue that we would move to in the future.
Gotcha. Yeah. So the things that you're learning on large scales, they're applicable in smaller scale sustainable systems as well.
Absolutely.
That's great. Mississippi State University is an educational institution, and in thinking about learning, we have formal learning that takes place in the classroom that's around credit granting, and then we have non-formal systems of education, and Extension is a leader in non-formal education. Can you tell us a little bit about non-formal education and how it applies to the REACH program?
Absolutely. So Non-formal education, as you said, is just outside of the classroom. It's not always aimed at students, the traditional students of what a citizen would think of as a college student. It could be K through 12, it could be adult learners in many cases. And even when I was a college student, I don't think I learned like they expected me to. I didn't really do well with just classroom instruction. I like to be hands-on. I like to be really doing something to learn it. And so usually that's kind of the approach we try to take with the REACH program and the education that we're doing. We aren't really trying to bring people back into the classroom. We're trying to create a classroom outside. We're trying to engage, even from the undergraduates that work with me to the graduate students to the farmers that we're working with. We want to be outside, seeing what's happening, understanding what's happening. And so, yeah, using this non-formal education to do that.
And even though it's non-formal education, Extension has a formal system to develop curriculum, approve curriculum, and assess learning in non-formal settings as well?
Right, and that just helps give me structure to make sure that the objectives in terms of what I want folks to learn, it gives me a way to structure that, to make sure that I'm giving them the information they need, connecting the dots the way I need to, so that the information's transferred. Because, yeah, you know, language can be a barrier, and if something's not conveyed in a way that's really attainable, the learning might not happen that way. So I try to communicate in, you know, the best sense where almost anyone can connect the dots.
Super. So if we think about the REACH program and its role in discovering, developing, disseminating knowledge, or even changing the way we learn or human behavior or conditions in society or in the environment, what would you say is kind of the biggest takeaway that's been observed or applied through REACH?
I would say the biggest takeaway is the idea of connectedness, not even through multiple levels. So through our citizens and learning and how we can all share this knowledge together, and it doesn't just have to be within the university system, that all of our citizens should have access to this knowledge, but also the connectedness in the environment, and how humans, even though we live in cities, we live in homes, we're still a major part of the ecology outside our doors. And so we can learn so much from just understanding how that works and how we fit into it. And then, you know, move into these more sustainable systems where we're working with the environment rather than against it at the same time. So I like to use the word connectedness in terms of bringing that all together.
Yeah. So when we think about engaged scholarship, Beth, you know, it's neat because there's this connectedness between the discovery of knowledge and then how that's applied and how it changes learning behaviors and conditions in society. So thank you. That's a wonderful thing to wrap up on, and really appreciate you being here on Engaged. And,
my pleasure.
So we want to invite everybody to join us on our next episode. We're going to have Dr. Dennis Truax with the Department of Civil Engineering. He's going to tell us about Engineers Without Borders. So we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Engaged.